Where would you kind of, if I said to you, where would you like the recovery kind of model? What would your kind of idea of a recovery model be?
Well, I think that it's one where any individual who wants to recover can access services which will support them in that aspiration. I think that it's one where people are not left in treatment indefinitely. The idea that somehow or other treatment is an alternate reality, that people can remain engaged with treatment services for perpetuity, I think that's enormously regrettable. So I think that the recovery movement needs to be accessible. I think that there is a role for challenging people, but you can't demand abstinence. There's no point in exhorting people to become drug-free. But I think that we have to be sure that our services, that there's a kind of seamless connection between those services which are about supporting individuals where they are now and those which are about encouraging them to move further down the road of their recovery. And I don't think those services, there's no necessity for them to be pulling in the opposite directions. But at the moment I think there is a degree to which that occurs. And if I have a notion of the recovery movement, it would be one that would create a greater degree of comfort, if you like, in recognising the value of those services which are about supporting where drug users are now, but ensuring that as their movement along the road to recovery starts to happen, that maximum support can be provided to maintain that momentum.
Where do you think I suppose this is the final question, I suppose the perceived gulf between, I suppose, at the moment, the kind of the recovery agenda and the harm reduction service, how do you think that can be, I suppose, blended together? I mean, it will blend together, or can they, how do you think? What do you think should change?
I think training. I think shared training is really important. I think that what can seem an enormous gulf between two workers expressed in programmatic terms, in terms of the philosophies underpinning their services, I think that can break down dramatically when those two individuals are actually working together in training or sharing an examination of a case where the kind of humanitarian element of what both individuals are doing is evident. It's not that one cares about the person and the other is completely disregarding the individual. That's just a crass stereotyping of what happens. I think where you have a situation where people can a shared understanding of where this individual is now, what they need now, what may need to be available some way further down the road, the capacity to guide that individual in that way, recognising that relapse is a feature of recovery, and that the journey to recovery may be one step forward and two steps back, and that if you move someone into a recovery-focused service, you may also need rapidly to be able to move them back into a harm reduction service if they're not surviving in that more challenging environment. I think that that's where that common ground can come, but I think that it will require quite an investment in training to do that. I don't think it will occur naturally. I think that there is many, if not more, forces pulling services apart, especially within a challenging financial environment, where people are. Where you're saying, well, my first concern is to try to retain the contracts of my existing staff. And it's a luxury for me to actually think more about what's the relationship with an adjacent service.
Yeah, and I suppose in a theory, if the especially with funding these days, you've got if fund is going to be given or favoured to recovery-based services, then I mean, I would just look at the organisations and within the UK, and they're they're fairly big. They're fairly big organisations that have a multitude of different services, throughout the country. And if their funding is, I suppose, depicted or by what the UK government's recovery agenda is going to be, it seems to me that the funds for harm reduction is going to be sort of reduced.
Yeah, I think that is inevitable, and it's how people react to that. But I think that there is nothing which can undermine joint working more rapidly than financial austerity.
Yeah.
I think if you want to see relationships pull apart, then just create a situation where everyone's scrabbling around for reduced amounts of money, and then I think there are no winners, and certainly the clients they're not the winners in that. They are the profound losers in that, and that I think would be hugely regrettable. But I can very easily see that can occur, because genuine joint working is difficult. It's time consuming. The benefits of it are often not that evident. It can distract you from what might be seen as your core area of business, and the inclination to pursue one's own line of development can seem strategically much more appropriate or more likely to deliver short-term benefits, but I think actually will deliver longer-term harm.
Listen, thank you ever so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, and I hope you enjoy your stay and your talk tomorrow.
Yeah.